This conference will now be recorded.
In yesterday's session, we were discussing about AWS global infrastructure. What is AWS global infrastructure, and what is region, and what is availability zone? We discussed, and also we started with our first service, EC2. So, what is EC2? As I already told, EC2 is a virtual machine. We discussed about purchasing options, how it is charged, all those things, and we were discussing about AMI. As I already told, AMI is a pre-configured package. It's a package. Is it application package? This AMI, will it have application code? No. This is not an application package. It is not going to have any code. It's a package for operating system. It's a package for operating system, OS, and some softwares, like basic softwares like VI, curl, wget, some kind of a softwares like it will have PS package, PS, curl, wget, netstat, these type of other software related packages. AMI provides information to create an instance. We can create as many servers as required using that AMI. So there are different types of AMIs. When we are creating a server, let's say in Mumbai region, I want to create my infrastructure. So I am in Mumbai region. Now EC2 dashboard, or this here also I can search EC2. So this EC2 is nothing but a virtual server in the cloud. It's a virtual machine in the cloud. I can create a server here. So this one, can I call it as what? Whatever I see here, this we call it as a console, AWS console, AWS GUI, AWS graphical user interface. If required, can we manage AWS resources using other approaches also, like CLI, command line interface? Using AWS commands also, can I create a resources and terminate the resources? Yes. If required, can I use APIs, application programming interfaces? Already AWS has exposed these services as APIs. By using those APIs as a developer, can I write some Java code? Can I write some Python code which can invoke those AWS APIs which will create the servers, or any other AWS resource in the background? We can do that. And also other infrastructure as a code softwares. Infrastructure as a code softwares like Terraform, CloudFormation. AWS has one service called CloudFormation, and other infrastructure as a code software like Terraform. By writing a Terraform script, by executing a Terraform script also, will I able to manage AWS resources programmatically instead of console, instead of GUI? Yes. But in the background, everyone will invoke APIs only. When I am creating using UI, when we are creating using CLI or Terraform also, in the background, the APIs of AWS will be invoked. Now I'm using GUI. I want to create a server. Now what is the first option we select here? We are selecting a AMI. So AMI is a pre-configured package which contains operating system. If I select this AMI, what is the operating system I will be installing for my EC2 instances? If I select this one, it is Amazon Linux. Amazon has its own Linux distribution. Amazon Linux. If I select this one, what is the operating system which I will be getting on the EC2? Mac operating system. If I select this one, Red Hat operating system. If I select this one, SUSE Linux, this one Ubuntu. If I select this AMI, what type of server is going to be created? Windows server. That machine, that EC2 will have a Windows operating system. So we have a AMIs. And again, here we have some types of AMIs. Community AMI, marketplace AMI, your own AMI. So community AMIs. Community AMIs generally contains only operating system. If you see here, community AMIs, my AMIs, marketplace AMIs. This community AMIs contains only operating system, kind of Linux, Windows, Mac operating system. When it comes to marketplace AMIs, like these are community AMIs only. These are community AMIs. It contains only some kind of operating system. When I go to marketplace AMIs, if I select this marketplace AMIs contains operating system with some licensed software, some enterprise licensed software. If you see, if I select this AMI, what I will be getting? I will be getting operating system plus this software, OpenVPN software. Suppose if I am selecting this AMI, marketplace AMI, if I select this AMI, what I will be getting? Will I be getting only operating system? No, operating system with this software. So this marketplace AMIs comes with some additional licensing software, but we need to pay for that softwares, licensed softwares. And what is this my AMI? What is the meaning of my AMI? We have my AMI section here. What is the meaning of my AMI? If required, can I create my own AMI with required operating system and softwares? Can I create my own AMI with required operating system and softwares in that AMI, in that package? Yes. But as of now, I don't have any AMIs created myself. Which OS comes with marketplace AMI? That can be any OS, right? That can be any OS. You can go to this marketplace AMIs and you can search this one. It is going to say this software with what operating system? This software with what operating system? If you see, if I select this marketplace AMI, this OpenVPN server with what software they're saying? What operating system they're saying? Ubuntu, right? So they will give these details here. Now this my AMIs, as of now I have not created any AMI. So we will use market AMI at the time of working? Not always. It not always. But if you are going to use some software, then you are going to use that AMI. If you don't need to use that software for your application, you no need to go with that one, right? Everything is based on the requirement, guys. Don't follow this stepwise approach. The way we are, like the way any trainer explain, step 1 click on this button, step 2 click on this button, select this radio button, click on this page. Don't follow that way of learning. Everything is based on the requirement. If you have a requirement that you need to use OpenVPN software, instead of you are creating a server with only operating system, later you are installing that software, that OpenVPN software. Can I directly go for a marketplace AMI and use that AMI so that the server will have that software also installed? So everything is based on the requirement, how you want to do, what you want to do. Don't follow like step 1 select this radio button, step 2 select this radio button. Never learn that way any concept. Don't by heart any command or approach. Everything is based on the requirement. So AWS is offering all these things. If required, you can go with community AMI. On top of this AMI, it contains only operating system. Once the server is created, will you able to install whatever software you want to install? Even though I'm selecting community AMI, it contains only operating system. But once the server is created, can I configure that server with whatever software I wanted to have in that server? Yes. But if I don't want to do that, if some AMI itself has that software, if I use that AMI, does that server comes with operating system plus that software also configured? If I use a AMI which has that software also, do I need to manually install that software again if that AMI itself has that software? No. So based on the requirement. Now if required, can I create my own AMI also? Yes. So how can I create my own AMI? There are two options here. One is you already have some server. Suppose I already have a server. Let's consider I already have this server. Let's say in this server, I already installed some software like maybe Tomcat or maybe Jenkins or maybe I installed a Docker. From this server, can I create a AMI? By selecting this server, go to actions, image and templates. If I create an image out of this server, in that server, I already have a Tomcat software or Jenkins software. Will that AMI, whatever I am going to create, will that AMI will have that operating system plus that Jenkins software, whatever is already part of that server or Tomcat software? If I create a AMI out of that server, yes. This is one way of creating a AMI. What is the other way? There is one software called Packer. There is one software called Packer. Using Packer also you can create a AMIs. Using Packer also you can create a AMIs. So using Packer I can create a AMI. Can I have that? Can I have required softwares in that AMI itself while creating a AMI? So if you want to have some softwares like Tomcat, Jenkins like that, do you need to again externally or explicitly need to install that softwares if it is already part of that AMI? Not required. So that is what my AMI. Is everyone clear? What is marketplace AMI? What is community AMI? What is my AMI? Okay. Now, once we decided the AMI, let me select this AMI. I am selecting community AMI only. I am selecting this AMI. So what is the operating system I have chosen? Red Hat. But this is community AMI. When I create a server out of this AMI, does this server will have any software like Tomcat, Docker, or Jenkins, or Nexus, or SonarQube like that? No. Only operating system, but some basic libraries like a VI, basic libraries like VI, curl, wget, those type of basic libraries. Right? We selected a AMI. What is the next section? Once we choose the AMI, what we are trying to choose in the second section? Instance type. Instance type. What type of instance you want to create? So instance type is basically the speed, the power of your system. Does instance type determines the power of your computer, how fast your computer, how fast your server is based on instance type. So AWS has categorized EC2 instances into multiple types and families. So we have a lot of types and families. If you see here, family and type, we have a lot of families like general purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized, storage optimized, like this. general purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized, storage optimized. This T family, this T family comes under this general purpose. Again, each family has a lot of types. Do you have something like this? T2 dot micro, T2 dot small, T2 dot medium. Again, like this, you have some family types. Now T2 dot micro, T2 dot small, T2 dot medium, T3 dot X large, 2X large, like double X large. Like this, you have family types. So each instance type has multiple family. Each family is categorized into based on the CPU and memory. Now, if I select this type of instance, general purpose T3A.2x large, how much memory, how much CPU I will be having for my server, which I am going to create? 32 GB of RAM, 32 GB of RAM. This is memory. 32 GB of RAM, 8 core CPU. Now, again, sir, what is this general purpose? What is this compute optimized? What is this memory optimized? What is this storage optimized? When I use general purpose, we have a balanced CPU and a balanced memory. There will be a balance between CPU and memory, which we can use for a general workloads. General workloads like normal application servers, deploying normal applications, or artifactories like Nexus or JFrog if you want to install. General purpose, balanced CPU and memory. But when I go for a compute optimized, the instances are optimized for computing CPU. So will I have a more CPU ratios compared to the memory if I go for a compute optimized? Yes. So if you want to have some kind of a batch processing, you want to do some kind of a batch processing, you need a lot of computing, lot of CPUs. If you want to run those type of batch jobs, batch processings, can I go for a compute optimized instances? If you have that requirement, you are using that server for a kind of a batch processing where you need more computing capacity. Yes. So when I go for this memory optimized, the name itself, it is saying memory optimized. What is the meaning of memory optimized? If I go for a memory optimized, do I have more memory RAM compared with CPU? Compared with CPU, I will have more memory. So if I want to have some kind of a in-memory databases or data warehousing tools like maybe Hadoop, big data, I need more memory. In that case, if I want to install those type of softwares in that machine, can I go for a memory optimized where I will have a lot of memory compared to the CPU? Yes. So what is the storage optimized? It is optimized for storage, which means you will get a better read and write performance. You will get a better read and write performance in the storage disk. So they have categorized into multiple categories. So again, sir, in real time, which one you will select? The next question, which one will select? Can I say always go and select T2 dot medium? Do you blindly follow that? No, right? Everything is based on the requirement. What is use case? Based on the requirement, you have a GPU optimized also. There is one more category, GPU optimized also. So you will have more GPUs. Now, again, each family has lot of types. Again, in real time, are you going to select very less configuration servers like 4 GB RAM, 2 core processor, or 8 GB RAM, 2 core processor like that? No. Some high configuration. Suppose you are directly using maybe Sonar Cube for Sonar Cube. Then here you can go with maybe 16 GB memory, 4 core processor like that. But if I am trying to use maybe Docker, I want to use the Docker servers. I want to deploy hundreds of containers, or I want to use Kubernetes purpose where I want to deploy hundreds of containers. Will I able to manage hundreds of containers in this type of Docker server? If I select T2.micro, will I able to create hundreds of containers in that server? No. In that case, you can go with very high configuration. Here you can filter. Here you can filter what type of families you want, right? So here you can scroll what this C stands for: compute optimized, GPU. This G stands for GPU optimized, M stands for memory optimized, all these things. Now, based on your requirement, you will select. But for our use case, I am selecting only this one. If I select any other instance type, is it free tier eligible? Except this T2.micro, is it free? No. So I'm selecting this T2.micro for now. But whether you are using very high configuration server or very less configuration server, does the concept of EC2 will change based on your instance type? No, right? So you are going to get a system with this much capacity, that's it. Suppose if I select this one, am I going to get a system with this much memory, this many CPUs? Yes. So that is what the meaning of instance type. So let me select only T2.micro for now. We have selected the instance type. Then once the instance type is selected, here I have given, guys, general purpose, like normal websites, web applications, microservices you can deploy, compute optimized, like kind of a batch processing, analytics softwares if you want to run, you can go for this. Memory optimized, like in-memory databases and data mining. Storage optimized for data warehousing, this type of requirement. GPU optimized for kind of a machine learning, artificial intelligence and machine learning kind of a softwares if you want to run. These type of categories they have given. Once this is done, in the next section, what we are going to do here, the most important here, how many instances you want to create. So if I am giving one, using that AMI, with that instance type, how many servers will be created? If I give one here, one server. If I give two, how many servers will be created using that AMI, using that instance type? Two servers. Now, again, if you want to request spot instances, you can select this one. I am not requesting spot instances. So what type of instance is getting created? Purchasing option. Now, if I don't select this one, on demand. Now, most important here is this network and subnet. Most important concept here is network and subnet. How many instances we can create here? I can create 10 instances also based on your requirement. Now, let me give one. Most important concept here is network and subnet. So what is this network? What is this subnet? So Kavya is asking, is there any limit? There is no limit for your EC2 instances in AWS, but there are limits in the networks and subnets that you will understand. Based on the demand, if you have 1,000 servers you want for your application, you can create 1,000 servers. If you want to create 10,000 servers also, you can create. There is no limit for EC2. There is a limit in the networking and subnets that you will understand later. First of all, understand EC2, then you can understand. So there is a network concept here. What is the meaning of network? I am creating a server. Does server require some network in which it has to be created? Does each and every server will have some network? Even your laptop also connected with some network, So under which network you want to create that server? You may have a question, sir, I have not created any network. How come I can see some entry here? So in AWS, there is a concept called VPC. There is a concept called VPC. You have a AWS account. You have a AWS account. This is AWS cloud. Now I am in Mumbai region. I am in Mumbai region. So in your account, you have a network. But you may have a question, sir, I have not created this network. So whenever you created a AWS account, a default VPC is created for you. A default VPC is created for you. So what is the meaning of VPC? VPC is one service in AWS. VPC is one service in AWS. Virtual Private Cloud. It's a network. It's a private network which you can manage. By default, there is a VPC created for us. So if I am selecting that network, the default network, does that server will be created in this network? Yes. So this is network. Within the network, we have a subnetworks. Within the network, you have a subnetworks. We call it as a subnets. I will explain in detail when I go for a VPC class. What is VPC? What is subnet? What is public subnet? What is private subnet? We will discuss everything later. For now, let's consider you need to create a server in one network. I am using default network, default VPC. Within that VPC, you will have a subnets, subnetworks. Within that VPC, you will have a subnetworks. Here you have some limitations. Here you have some limitations. Now I can create a subnets. We will discuss in detail in VPC class, but let me give you one overview. How many VPCs can be created by default in one region? That is one interview question also. How many VPCs can be created? How many networks? VPC is nothing but a network. How many networks can be created in one region in AWS? By default, 5 VPCs. Each VPC can have how many subnets? This is one interview question. Each VPC can have how many subnets? Up to 200 subnets. That is 200, up to 200 subnet each VPC. Again, we will discuss this when I go for a VPC. For now, let's understand VPC is nothing but a network. Subnet is nothing but a small network within that network. Now, when I am creating a EC2, I need to select in which VPC. You will see only one VPC because we never created any VPC on our own. So this is created for us by default. In that VPC, as of now, how many subnets are there? If you see, 3 subnets, 3 networks again. If you see, did they created all those subnets, all those subnetworks in same availability zone in that region? Did they created all those subnets in same availability zone? No. If you see, one subnet is 1A, another subnet is in 1B, another subnet is in 1C. Now, each subnet is in separate availability zone. Again, there is a concept of public subnet and private subnet, guys. Here there is a concept of public subnet and private subnet. What is the meaning of public subnet? Again, I will cover in detail. Just to give an example here, overview, I am saying these subnets can be either public subnets or these subnets can be either private subnet. What is the meaning of public subnet? The public subnet will have access to the internet. The public subnet will have access to the internet, which means, will I able to access that server from internet if it is part of public subnet? If that server is part of public subnet, will I able to access that server from internet? And does that server also can communicate with internet? Yes. But if I create a server in private subnet, does that server can be accessible from internet? If it is in a private subnet, can we access that server from your laptop? Suppose you created a server in private subnet, will you be able to access that SSH to that private server from your laptop? No. But by default, whatever VPC we have, by default, these subnets in the default VPC, all are what type of subnets? All are what type of subnets? All are public subnets. How come you can say? Because are you guys able to access those servers, the services which is running in that servers from your laptop? SSH also one service. SSH also one service. Are you able to SSH to that server from your laptop, whatever you guys created in that network so far, in that subnet so far? Are you guys able to access Tomcat from your laptop? Are you guys able to access the database which is installed in that server? Are you guys able to access Jenkins or Nexus from your laptop also in whatever servers you installed in that network? Yes, because all are public subnets. So all those instances will have a public IP as well as private IPs. So you will get a public IPs as well as private IPs in these subnets. But in real time, are we going to create all our application servers like Tomcat servers, JBoss servers, like Jenkins servers? All our servers will be in a public subnets. Application servers and database servers will be in a public subnet in real time? No. That we will discuss later, not now. For now, let's choose default VPC. Just to give an overview, I am giving here an example. What is network? What is subnets? So while creating a server, do I need to select under which network, under which subnet I need to create this server? While creating a server, do I need to select under which network, under which subnet I need to create this server as per your requirement? Yes. Now, here, one more option here, IAM role. I will explain this IAM role. What is IAM? Now let's assume this server has to communicate with some other AWS services. Programmatically, this server has to access maybe S3 bucket, or maybe the server using within this server, if I execute Terraform script, it should be able to create a server. So this server requires permissions to manage AWS resources. Then I can create some IAM role and I can attach that IAM role to this server. This I will explain later. What is this IAM role? Why do we need IAM role? For now, I am not selecting any IAM role. Now here, we have one more option here, enable termination protection. Enable termination protection. Protect against accidental termination. If I select this one and create a server, if I go to EC2 dashboard and if I go to terminate button, will it terminate automatically? If I select this button, if I go, once the server is created, if I go to actions and terminate the instance, does the instance will be terminated if this button is selected? If this button is selected, no. It will give a warning. It will give a warning saying that instance is protected against accidental termination. It will not terminate by default, it will throw warning. If you want to really terminate, again, do I need to go to the actions and modify this enable termination protection? I need to go to actions, deselect this one, then I can terminate. So will it protect me for accidental terminations? By mistake, I have clicked on terminate, but if I have selected this one, is it going to give a warning that it is going to give a warning, this is protected against accidental termination? Now, one more important concept here is user data. Sometimes in the interview also they will ask in the advanced details, we have a user data. What is this user data? In the interview also they will ask this question. What is user data in AWS? What is user data in AWS? Sometimes in the interview ask. So what is this user data here? I can call it as a bootstrapping script. While creating the server itself, I want to execute some commands or some script or some code. Can I provide that as a user data here? So while creating a server itself, does AWS will take this user data and execute in the server once it is created for the first time? Yes. So any data, any script, right? So you can provide kind of a script by writing a shebang line, then whatever commands. Let's say I want to install some software. While creating a server itself, I want to install some software. Can I provide that as a user data here? So how to write as per your requirement? So shebang line here, something like this. Under user data, here there is a radio checkbox here, right? So here I can give a shebang line like this if I want to execute some kind of a script. So here, based on the operating system, this is Red Hat operating system. Can I use something like this? Can I use something like this? 1 second, guys. Give me a second. Sorry, guys. So based on the operating system which I am using here, can I execute some commands like this? M update -y, but you should not have any human intervention. So that's why I'm using -y. If required, can I install some software? That can be any software like Git. But does this server should be having an internet? If I want to install softwares directly from internet, directly from this package manager, without having the internet access in this server, will I able to install these softwares from internet directly? Even though I give a user data, if that server doesn't have internet access, will it able to do that? No. Now, since it is in a public subnet, is it able to download and install these softwares from internet? Yes. Now, without any human intervention, something like this. Any software, if required, can I write a script which can install Java software, which can download the Tomcat zip file, extract the zip file, install and start also? Can I write something like that also, whatever I wanted to do? Yes. So this we call it as a user data. User data. So does this user data will be used by AWS when we are creating for the first time? Does this user data gets executed in the server while creating a server itself? Yes. So this is what it does. Something like this I'm just giving as an example. Now next, what is this? What is this fourth section? Storage. What is memory? What is storage? What is memory? What is storage? Is both are same? No. Memory is RAM. Memory is RAM. Storage is disk. How much storage you need? So whenever we are creating EC2, whenever we are creating EC2, in the background, it is going to create a storage also. Now I am creating EC2, let's say. I am creating EC2, let's say. In the background, it is going to create a one more service for storage. What is this storage? This I can call it as a root storage. Root storage. For what purpose we need this storage? To boot the operating system. To boot the operating system, do we need some storage? To booting the operating system, we need a storage. So this storage I can call it as a root storage, root value. And again, there are two types of storages we can use for root values. One is EBS storage, another one is local storage. One is EBS storage, another one is local storage. As of now, this instance is supporting what type of storage? This instance is supporting what type of storage as a root storage? EBS storage. It is supporting EBS storage. So which means with this 10 GB capacity, with 10 GB capacity, will I get some disk EBS storage with 10 GB capacity? Does this storage will be used by this instance to booting the operating system? Yes. This is EBS storage. What is the meaning of local storage? Is it recommended to use local storages? What is the meaning of local storage? If it is a local storage, right? If it is a local storage, this EC2, will it be using some physical hardware in the background, physical machine? This is a virtual machine. On top of some physical machine, you are getting a, on top of this physical machine, you are getting this EC2 instance. If it is a local storage, it is going to use storage from the underlying hardware. It is going to use storage from the underlying hardware. So this I can call it as a local storage. If it is a local storage, if I stop the server, if I stop this EC2 instance, and if I start this EC2 instance, and this EC2 instance is coming in a different hardware, different physical machine, whatever has been stored in that local storage, will I have that data again? If it is a local storage, if I stop this EC2 instance, and if I create a EC2 instance, if EC2 instance is coming here, suppose I saved some data, will it be part of this EC2 instance if I stop and start again? No. So these local storages are temporary storages, kind of a temporary storages. So for persistent data, is it recommended to use local storages, whether it's a root volume or separate disk also? Local storages are not recommended. How can I know whether it is root storage or local storage? If you go back here, let me go to previous step. When we are selecting that instance type, when we are selecting that instance type, is it showing instance storage? What type of storage it is going to support? This instance, is it saying EBS only, which means only EBS values? Now if you see, some instances are supporting kind of a local storages, these things, local storages, but local storages are temporary. So is it recommended to use local storages? For persistent data, you want to save some data, and even after multiple restarts of your servers also, you want to have that data. So that is what local storage. That that root value, either it can be a local storage or it can be a EBS storage. If it is a EBS storage, it is going to use this one. Guys, if you are from a storage background, you can understand this one. In storage, there is a concept of NAS, SAN, NAS. Those technologies has been used here, but we don't need those many storage background. because we are not a storage admins, right? So NAS, network attached storage. SAN, storage area network. These are storage technologies. There will be a separate storage admins who will work on that one. Now, if I am using this EBS storage, even though server is stopped for some reason, server is created in a different hardware. Do I still have the data intact with my server if I'm using this EBS storage? Yes. This is root value. So for what purpose this is going to be used? To booting the operating system. To booting the operating system. If required, can I attach additional storages the way you attach additional hard disk to your laptop or your desktop? Similarly, can I attach additional disks also to this server if required? Additional volumes? Yes, we can do that. That I will explain later. Once the server is also created, if required, can I attach some additional storage? Can I mount with this storage with some directory in this server? Additional storage, maybe separate directory, something like this. This directory I can mount with this storage. Additional disk, that we will do later when I go for a EBS. Now I am using only one value, that is root value. So EBS, what is the full form of EBS? Elastic Block Store. So we will discuss EBS separate session. When I go for a storage, what is EBS, what is EFS, what is S3, we will discuss. For now, I am just giving an explanation because we are using here. Now, EBS also has some types. What is this? General purpose, provisioned IOPS, magnetic. What is this? General purpose, provisioned IOPS, magnetic, all these things. Can we increase the volume? Yes. This is the default. Suppose I need 100 GB. Can I create this root volume with 100 GB? Yes. But for root volume, there is a limit. There is a limit for root value. So will I able to create with 2000 GB root for just booting the operating system? No. So based on the operating systems, not all operating system supports root values greater than this much. So there is a limit for root value. Just booting the operating system, you don't need that much. And again, if I use this much, am I responsible for paying amount for this much storage? Even though I stop the server, I am responsible for paying this much. So I'm just going with 10 GB. Now, instance type I can understand. Based on the instance type, you will have a CPU and memory. Your computer performance is based on the CPU and memory. But what is there in the storage? Why we have a types again in the storage also? What does it matters? How storage performance will be measured, guys? How you will perform your storage, your disk performance? There is a concept called IOPS. IOPS. What is the full form of IOPS? Input, output, operations per second per GB. Per second per GB. How much input operations you can carry per second per GB? How much output operations you can carry? Input in the sense writing, output in the sense reading. How much data you can read per second? How much data you can write per second for that storage? Now, if you see here, we have different types: general purpose SSD, magnetic. So what is this magnetic? Magnetic is very old storage technology. Magnetic disks. Will I get a better performance in reading and writing the data if I use magnetic disks? No. Now we have a SSD, HDD. What is this SSD? Nowadays, even though when you guys are purchasing a laptop, are you observe, are you checking whether this is SSD disk or HDD disk like that. What is that SSD? Solid state drive. Solid state drive. HDD. HDD is one more type of storage. Solid state drives, SSD drives are very costly initially, so people started using HDDs that time. But nowadays, SSD disks are very cheap in the market, right? Lot of people are manufacturing SSD disks, SSD storages. So SSD will give a better performance compared to the HDD again. SSD will give a better performance when it compared to HDD also. So if you see, is HDD supported by AWS as a root value? As a root value? No. It is going to support only SSD. But as of now, if I want to attach additional disk, can I select HDD also if required as of now? In AWS, yes, for additional value. But again, that is not recommended by AWS because they are going to remove that HDD support soon. Now again here, general purpose SSD, provisioned IOPS. So if I go for a provisioned IOPS, I will get a lot of input output operations per second. So very fast in the storage. Now if I am creating this server and I want to use this storage for my database, is it recommended to create a magnetic type of storages if I want to use this storage for database to read and write the data of my database? No. Your performance will be impacted. So in that case, based on your requirement, can you go for a provisioned IOPS or general purpose storages? Yes. So this is basically a disk for your server, but this is what value? Root, only for booting the operating system. Now here, what is this option? Delete on termination. By default, this is selected, which means if this is selected, whenever I am terminating EC2, does that root volume also gets terminated? That storage also gets terminated because of this option? Delete and termination? Yes. So the storage also gets deleted, that root value. That is only for root. Suppose if I am using additional disk, additional value, this I am using to maintain my Jenkins data. Let's say I created an additional disk. I mounted Varlib Jenkins with this disk, with this my server. Now if I terminate that EC2, does this Jenkins volume will be terminated? If you have attached and you have mounted this Varlib Jenkins with this disk, if you terminate this EC2, is your Jenkins data will be removed? If you have mounted a separate storage and mounted that Varlib Jenkins directory with this storage, does Jenkins data will be deleted? That additional volume will be deleted? No. So root volumes we have to use only for booting the operating system. It is recommended to use additional volumes for your application data. Suppose you guys as of now not used any additional volumes, you guys installed Jenkins and you guys used this root volume itself. If you terminated your Jenkins server, since your Jenkins data is also part of root volume, is it everything deleted? Yes. Now if I do this additional value, I will create additional disk and I will mount this additional disk with this server and I will mount that Varlib Jenkins. So is all your Jenkins data will be part of this disk, additional disk? And if I terminate this server also, still will I have this additional data, this additional disk? Yes. If required, can I create a server again? Can I create a server again? Can I mount this Varlib Jenkins with this server? Does that Jenkins will have my data again? Complete jobs configurations? Yes. So how to create additional value, how to mount additional value, we will discuss when I go for a EBS. So I'm just giving an overview. What is this disk? You no need to worry, guys. We will cover all those things practically also. but you should have a commitment or interest to attend the classes. I already see 86 people in the class. Yesterday, I see 95, 94. Again, today it is keep on dropping. You will get these type of questions only. You open the interview questions shared in our group and see. Lot of questions are coming on this one also. Every topic is important, but make sure you are attending. So what is this 100, this IOPS, right? So how many operations per GB minimum, maximum? It can go up to 3000, which means it can burstable in the sense, even though 3000 input output operations also happening, it can go up to that extent. Minimum 3, it will go to up to 100, and it can burst till 3000 also. 3000 input output operations per second per GB. That is here 100 by 3000 in the sense, minimum 3, maximum 100. It can burst till up to 3000. It can support till 3000 input output operations also. This is general purpose. If I go for provision IOPS, is it supporting more? Is it supporting more? If you see provision IOPS, 10,000. Just to make it simple, guys, you are using pen drives. You are using pen drives. USB 2.0, USB 3.0. Suppose you are using USB 2.0. Are you guys able to quickly copy your data from your laptop to pen drive to laptop? Just to make it simple? No. But if I am using USB 3.0, does it gives the better performance in reading and writing the data to that pen drive? Yes, simple. So this storage is like that only. This is hard disk. How good you can perform reading and writing from that storage. So magnetic, very old floppy disks in the early, when I was in 10th, right? My seniors like BCA students and BSc students used to carry one floppy disk in early 98, 99, 2000 period. People used to carry floppy disk. What that is magnetic tapes. Do you have a better performance in that magnetic tapes kind of a stuff? No. So now there are a lot of technology has improved. SSD disk, HDD disk. So these are the underlying storage type in the data center. But who is going to manage all these SSD disks, storages, HDD disk in the background? That is taken care by AWS itself in the background. Okay. So I am selecting only this one, general purpose only free. Now I am selecting this one because this is the root value. Even though I terminate root value, no issues. The next section. What is this section? What we are going to do in this section? Tags. What is tags? What is tags? What is tags in AWS? Uma Shankar, I will cover, can we increase EBS after creating? I will cover all those things in the EBS section. I am not covering EBS. I am still covering EC2. Just wait. Don't deviate the topic. I will cover all those topics. You no need to worry. I'm just still discussing EC2. I will discuss EBS in a separate class after EC2. Now, what is this tags? Tags is like a metadata, data about data. So I'm creating lot of resources in AWS. Will I able to identify for what purpose this EC2 is created, for what purpose this EBS is created? Suppose some kind of a labeling is not there on that resources. Will I able to identify for what purpose this EC2 is created or for what purpose this EBS is created? if I don't have some kind of a labels, tags on those resources? No. So these tags are basically key value pairs. Tags are basically key value pairs. We can give a tags. Just to give an example, guys, if you go to supermarkets or any stores, kind of a supermarkets or stores, will they have some tags to easily identify these products are in this area, these products are in this area, like that? Easy to recognize. So these tags we can use for identification purpose, metadata, and also we can use these tags in the IAM also to give the permissions, to grant the permissions. I can grant permissions to these resources using tags also. Now here I can give a tag, key value. So here, suppose I am creating this server for Jenkins purpose. Can I tag like this? Jenkins server like this. Key is name, value is Jenkins, like this. If required, can I add another tag? Something like this. Can I add n number of tags, different keys, different values, like this? So all these tags will be attached to your volumes, your servers also. The next and foremost important section here is security group. So what is the security group? What is the security group you guys are using from day one? Kind of a virtual firewall. Kind of a virtual firewall in front of your system. It will protect unauthorized access. Now I am creating a server. I am creating a server in AWS. Let's say this server can be used for any purpose, any software, even SSH also. Even SSH also one service. You are accessing SSH service. On which port SSH is running, guys? SSH is also one service which is running on some port. On which port SSH is running? 22. Now I want to SSH to this server. Now do I need to access using IP and port? Do I need to access using IP and port? So if I am using SSH, even though I don't mention the port, on which port request goes to that server? If I am using SSH, on which port request goes to that server, even though I don't mention? Port 22. But here, in front of that system, there is a security group. What is that security group? It's a firewall. It's a firewall. There is a security group in front of that system which will protect the unauthorized access. It has a firewall. Now here, do I need to open that port? Here in that security group has two things here. Again, two things. Security group has two things. One is inbound rule, another one is outbound rule. Security group has inbound rules and outbound rules. What is the meaning of inbound? What is the meaning of outbound? Inbound, outbound. Inbound is incoming traffic. Incoming traffic. This outbound is nothing but outgoing traffic. Inbound, incoming traffic. Outbound, outgoing traffic. Now here someone is trying to access this server on some port. Will it be an incoming request for this server? If someone is trying to reach this server, it will be incoming request. So here, do I need to open the respective ports for the respective IPs systems? Which port can be accessible from which IPs? Now if you see here in the inbound rule, this is inbound rule, port is 22. What is this 0.0.0 represents what? under source, I can see under source, I can see 0.0.0 source IP. What is this source IP? So source IP is nothing but this system IP. Suppose if I am trying to access this server, does this guy will become a source? If I want to access this guy from this guy, does this guy is a source? Yes. And this will be a destination? Does this will be a destination in perspective of this machine? This will be a destination in perspective of this machine. This guy will be a source. Now in this server, source 0.0.0, what is it? What is the meaning of 0.0.0? Any IP, any IP, any IP is allowed. Any IP is allowed. Now, suppose I have not opened for 0.0.0 here. I have not opened for 0.0.0 here. Let's say I have opened for some IP range like this. Now, does anyone can access that server on port 22? Does anyone can reach on port 22 on that server? No. So what does it mean? This is one range. So does that source IP should be in that range, which means this machine IP should be in that range. If this is not in that range, does this firewall will allow to reach that port 22? First of all, no. Here, is it recommended to open like this, guys? Any port, is it recommended to open like this? And again, most importantly, is it recommended to do like this on your actual servers? Is it recommended to do like this? All traffic anywhere? No. Open whatever ports which is required. And again, don't open for everyone. Open for whatever sources you want to open. This is incoming traffic, firewall. If I don't open the port, will I able to access for my system if the port is not opened? No. What is the best practice here? What is the best practice here? Open whatever ports which is required for whatever sources it is required. Again, don't open for everywhere like this. Based on the requirement, only open for that networks, that ranges. Okay. For now, I am opening for 0.0.0. So, am I able to SSH to this server? Is a port 22 is allowed to communicate from my laptop because I am opening for 0.0.0? Yes. This is inbound rule. What is the meaning of outbound rule? What is the meaning of outbound rule? Outgoing traffic. Outgoing traffic. Can I block the request here itself? Suppose this server, this EC2 instance want to communicate with some server. Can I block the request within the server itself? This is kind of a entry gate. This is kind of a exit gate. So if required, can I block the request here itself? This server don't want to communicate with any other server? Yes. But by default, it is not blocked. By default, outbound is open for all the traffic, all the ports, everywhere. But incoming is very, very important. Incoming is very, very important. So every server we need to protect in the incoming. Outgoing, this server can talk to any other server. So by default, outbound is open for all the ports and all the IPs. Is everyone clear what is security group? And again, how many security groups can be attached to one server, one EC2 instances? If required, can I attach multiple like this also? Yes. And also, can I use same security group with multiple EC2 instances? Suppose I already have some security group. This security group is used in some server. So can I use same security group in multiple servers also? If any modification in this security group, will it impact all the servers? whatever servers is using this security group? Yes. If required, you can create a new security group and attach, or if you required, you can use existing security group also. Is everyone clear what is the security group? It's a firewall. Now I am opening only port 22 for now. Then final stage. In the final stage, it is asking you to review. So all the details, okay? AMI fine, instance type fine, security group fine, storage fine, tags also fine. If you want to modify anything, can you go back and modify? Yes, we can go back and modify. So when I am creating a server, inbound, by default, what is the outbound? By default, as I already told, outbound will be open like this. Outbound will be open like this. All traffic, as I already told, all traffic, all ports, everywhere, all IPs, outbound, like this. It will be opened by default like this, outbound. Now let me create a server. Now while creating a server, what we are selecting here? What is this? Why do we need this? How to restrict outbound if you have to do? From EC2 dashboard, will you able to go to security groups and modify? If you have play around with AWS console, you already have an answer. So I can go to this security, this EC2 dashboard, right? There is a security group section. There is a security group section in the EC2 dashboard, right? There is a security groups, or you can go under this network also. Under network security also, there is a security groups. You can go to that security group. Suppose this is my security group. This has inbound and outbound. So outbound, by default, what is the outbound? All traffic. If required, can I edit this outbound rules for this security group? You can edit. So now let's come back here. What is this? Why do we need this? By default, AWS EC2 instances, by default, will it have a password based authentication enabled with some password? By default, AWS EC2 instances? No. So it is going to use key based authentication. We call it this as a PEM file. Again, this has two things. This PEM file has two things, two keys actually. What are those keys? This PEM file is basically combination of private key and public key. This PEM file is nothing but a combination of private key and public key. So this PEM file which you are selecting and downloading, that is what key? You downloaded that PEM file. So is it a public key, that PEM file, or is it a private key? It's a private key. That PEM file is nothing but a private key. So if I don't have any key pair, I can create a new key pair and I can download this one. I have to download this one. Now, if I already have some key pair, can I choose that existing key pair? This key is already with me. I can select this one. Now, this is private key. So where exactly the respective public key will be available? Where exactly the respective public key will be available? That respective public key will be kept in your AWS. In which location? In that user. What is the default user in case of Red Hat? In which location that respective public key will be available? The default user is EC2. Under that EC2, we have one folder called SSH folder. Within that SSH folder, authorized keys. So does AWS will keep the respective public key of your private key in this location while creating a server? AWS will place that respective public key of your private key in this location while creating a server. Now, whenever we are SSHing, are we using that -i option? -i option, that PEM file. So you are sending the PEM file. You are sending the PEM file along with username. When you are SSHing, you are using SSH-i, that username, EC2 user, @ IP address of that server, something like this. Just to give an example, something like this. Now, if this port is blocked, will it cross this gate itself? Will it cross this security group itself if this port is blocked? Is your SSH will cross this firewall itself if the port is blocked? So if the port is blocked, what type of error you will get? If that port is blocked, what type of error you get? You will get a timeout. Because it is not allowing. The timeout error you will get if the port itself is blocked. Now if the port is allowed, then will it cross this firewall and will it talk to the SSH service which is running in that server? That SSH service which is running in server, the 22 port? Yes. Does that SSH service will try to verify whatever private key you are sending? Will it try to compare with the respective public key which is part of that server? If it is matching, then only it will allow. If it is not matching, what error you will observe, guys? Are you going to get that public access denied kind of a message? When you guys executed SSH, you might have observed that public access denied message, SSH message. Now, in the interviews also they are asking one question. I lost the PEM file. How can I recover my EC2? I will explain that one also. Before you ask, let me tell. In the interviews also they are asking this question. I lost the PEM file. I lost this private key. I lost this private key. Will I able to SSH to this server if this server doesn't have any user except EC2 user? If this server doesn't have a password based authentication enabled and password is created, will I able to SSH to this server if I lost this PEM file, the private key which I have in my location, my local laptop? No. So how to recover, that I will explain later. When I go for a EBS, I will explain that one also. But is everyone clear what is this key pair? What is the purpose of that key pair? Now I am selecting that key pair. I am creating a server. Now servers will have a IP addresses. Servers will have a IP addresses. The way each human will have some unique way of identification. The way human, like a man, humans have some unique way of identification. Like suppose in India, how we can uniquely identify the person? Like Aadhaar card, right? Some number. Similarly, each computer will have IP addresses. Each computer will have IP addresses. Now, there are two types of IPs. There are two types of IP addresses. This firewall I have already explained. So IP addressing. So we have two types of IP addresses: private IP and public IP. Private IP and public IP. So what is private IP? What is public IP? By default, every EC2 instance will be provided with a private IP address. By default, every EC2 instances will be created with a private IP address. So private IP addresses can be used to communicate with other servers if they are in a same network, local network, kind of a LAN. Suppose in the same network, let's consider this is my network. I have another EC2 instance. Does this EC2 instance can communicate with this EC2 instance without internet also, with just private IP? If they are in same network, This EC2 instance can communicate with this EC2 instance with private IPs, private IP of this server without internet. But provided firewall is opened. If the firewall is blocked, again, will it block? Yes. So within the network, within LAN, local area network, we can communicate using private IPs. Now, can I create a server without public IP? Can I create a server without public IP? Server with only private IP? Can I have a servers without public IP? Is public IP is mandatory? No. So public IPs are not mandatory, which means you can create a server with only private IPs. But if the servers are only in private with private IPs, will I able to access those servers from internet or from different networks or internets? No. That we will discuss in detail in VPC section. In real time, all your application servers, your database servers will be created within private subnets, without internet, without public IPs. So why it is recommended to create your application servers, your database servers in the private subnets without internet, without public IPs? Are we able to protect our application servers, our database servers from internet, from different networks? Yes. But then if the application servers also in private subnet, then how end users will access? Does end users will directly access the application servers, or there will be a load balancer sitting in front of the application servers? There will be a load balancer sitting in front of the application server. Now, suppose applications, there will be a load balancer. This load balancer I will create in a same network. This load balancer I will create in a same network. But in which subnet I will create this load balancer? I will create this load balancer in a public subnet. Public subnet. So if I create the load balancer in a public subnet, will it have a public IP? Can I reach this load balancer from internet? End users can access this load balancer? Yes. And does this load balancer can communicate with your EC2 instances, your application servers, even though this application server is private server? Since this load balancer and this EC2 instance is in same network, same VPC, does this load balancer can communicate with this application server? And does this application server can communicate with the database server, even though this database server is private server? Yes. But does end users can directly reach these servers? Does end users can directly reach your application servers? Does end users can directly reach your database servers? No. So that is where we have a private servers. It is not mandatory, guys. Sometimes in the interview also they'll ask this question: is it mandatory to have a public IP for your server? Or they will ask indirectly, can I have a server without public IP? Yes. All our application servers, all our database servers will not have a public IPs, will not have internet in actual application. But for now, since I created in a default VPC has a public subnets only, did I get a public IP as well as private IP for this server? If you see for this server, did I get a public IP and private IP? So who will manage and who will assign public IPs? Who will manage and who will assign public IPs? These are managed and assigned by ISP. ISP. What is the meaning of ISP? Internet Service Provider. Internet Service Providers. But do I have a control on private IPs when I am creating a network? When I am creating a network for my application servers, my database servers, Can I define the network range, IP range for my private IPs? Do I have a control on this private IP? Yes. While creating a network, we can define the IP range, private IP range. Now, if I stop the server and start the server, does this private IP will be changed or will be remain same? If I start this server and start this server, the private IP will remain same. It remains same. But if I try to stop this server and start this server, does this public IP remain same or it will change? It will change. Now, will I able to SSH to this server using this private IP from my laptop? I have a laptop. I am using MacBook. In MacBook, I have a terminal, Mac terminal, inbuilt SSH terminal. Now I have a PEM file. I have a PEM file. This is my PEM file, DevOps for PEM file. Now I am trying to SSH using that DevOps PEM file, EC2-user at the rate. I am using private IP. I am using private IP. Will I able to reach from my laptop? Will I able to access that one using private IP? Will I able to reach that server on private IP? If you see, I'm using private IP. Will I able to reach that server? Even though port is opened, is port is opened, is port 22 is opened for everywhere? Yes, but still, why? Is my source, I mean to say my laptop and that server which I'm trying to reach, are they belongs to same network? Are they in same network? No, they are in two different networks. And again, this is private IP. Is this private IPs are routable in the internet? Is this private IPs are routable? Is there any road? Route is nothing but a road. In the internet, will these IPs are routable? These are private IPs. No, I cannot reach. But let's consider I have these servers. Now, does this Jenkins server can communicate with this Docker server using private IPs without internet also? Since they are in same VPC, same network. Since this one, if you see in the networking section, this Jenkins server is also in this VPC. This Docker server also in same VPC. But it can be in different subnet also. It can be in different subnet. Within that VPC, it can be in different subnet also, no issues. But within that VPC, the servers can communicate with each other using private IPs, even though they are in two different subnets under that VPC. Yes. But am I able to reach from my local laptop? So are you getting this operation timed out? Now, I want to check whether I have a connectivity or not. What command I can use, guys? Forget about SSH, HTTP, all those things. I want to see whether I can reach that server or not. What I can use? I can use ping. Ping. Now, this IP, I'm using this server private IP. Is it able to exchange any data with that server using private IP? No. Now, I can use public IP. But again, this ping also, we need to open some protocol here. Even though I am using public IP, let me show you. I'm using public IP. I'm using ping, public IP. But still, why I'm getting this one request timeout? Because we need to open some protocol in the security group. There is a protocol called ICMP protocol. We need to open that protocol in the security group. Did I open that protocol which can communicate with that server and ping? If you see, no. So now let me open that protocol. Go to the inbound rules. edit inbound rules. Here there is a one protocol called all ICMP. All ICMP. I am opening for everywhere. This is just for testing the ping. Now, if you see, the moment I open that one, do you see, is it able to communicate now? The moment I open that ICMP protocol on public IP, yes. But if I use private IP, do you see, is it able to reach that server on private IP? No. Now, if I want to test on some port, I don't want to use ping. I want to test whether I can reach that server on so and so port. What command I can use? Guys, these are very, very important. These are very, very important in the troubleshooting. Suppose your Jenkins server is not able to talk to some server. Your application server is not able to talk to database server. So do we need to troubleshoot using these network related commands, troubleshooting commands, whether I can reach from that system to other system and so and so port? Do I need to troubleshoot and check whether is there any network or not? Is the firewall is allowed or not? Do I need to use all these commands to troubleshoot? As a DevOps engineer, network troubleshooting is also important. Now what command I can use? Someone is saying netstat. Is netstat is the command using which I can do the network connectivity check? No. What is the netstat command, guys? For what purpose netstat command is used? Netstat command is for checking what ports are listening in that server. What ports are listening? What ports are active in that server? What ports are listening in that server? Now I want to reach that server on so and so port from my laptop. What command I can use? If I have a telnet software, can I use telnet? Telnet, that IP address of that server, that IP address of that server, that IP address of that server. I am using private IP. Will I able to reach on private IP port 22? Am I able to reach this server on port 22 even though port is opened? No. In the background, SSH is going to use which port, guys? As I already told, the moment I am executing SSH command, in the background it is going to use 22 port only. On private IP, am I able to reach from my laptop on port 22? No. Can I use public IP and try once? Now I will use this public IP and I am trying. Now am I able to reach that server on port 22 using public IP? Do you see, is it connected to that machine? Yes. Now if you don't have this telnet software, can I use one more software called curl also if required? Curl software. Curl, but using -v. This you need to do. Telnet and IP address. Telnet, the IP address, port. So can I use something like this? Curl -v telnet : IP address and port : port. Now am I able to reach that server on port 22 now using public IP? Yes. But if the firewall is blocked, let me go to the security group of that server. Let me say, let me edit this inbound rules. Now port 22, I am not opening for everyone. I am opening for some range like this. This is private IP range. Something like this. Now I have opened only port 22 for that range, this source IPs. Now will I able to reach? that port 22? Do you see, is it allowing me to connect on that port from my laptop? No. Now, even though I use SSH command, of that server, will I able to cross that firewall? Does it goes to SSH service if I try to do this? Even though I am using public IP, will it allow? Even though I have a key, pair, I have a public IP? No. Now I will get a timeout. Now do I need to open as per the requirement for what ranges you want to open that SSH port? I can go to the security group. I can go to the inbound rules, the security group. I can modify. Now this port 22, I will open for whatever ranges like this. 0.0 is for internet, any IP. Now if I open that, now let me try. Now is it allowing me to communicate with that port 22 since I am using correct key pair only? Am I able to SSH? Am I able to connect to that server on this user on this port? Yes. Let's consider, let me come out of that server. Let's consider I am using a different PEM file, not the same PEM file which I used for creating that server. I'm using a different PEM file. Will it allow this? Will it allow? Because this is different key. This is different key. Do we have the respective public key of this key in the server? Do we have the respective public key of this private key in the server? No. Now, what does it mean? You don't have a respective key, that public key in the server, in that user. Is everyone clear? Whatever has been discussed so far? Even though you have used EC2, I hope this is beneficial for you because we covered a lot of in and out of EC2 instances. Okay. Now, what is elastic IP? What is elastic IP? I will continue tomorrow because it is already 9:20. I don't want to drag. So tomorrow I am going to start with EBS. Tomorrow also we have a class. We are going to start with EBS. What is EBS? How to increase the storage capacity? How to add additional volumes? If we lost the PEM file, how to create? How to create? How to recover that server? We can discuss. How many types we can connect to EC2? Connecting EC2. Basically, EC2 is one server. In that server, you have a different process. Tomcat process, Jenkins process, database process. SSH also one process. Suppose in that server, if I have a database, if I want to communicate with the database, do I need to use that port on which database is running? Suppose I want to communicate with the database. I want to access a database which is running in that server. Do I need to use that port of that database? Suppose if you have installed MySQL, on which port it will be running? 3306, right? Now, SSH is also one service. In the server, you will have a services. In the server, you will have a services. If I want to access this database service, I need to use IP address and respective port of the database on which port the database is running. If I want to access database, yes. Suppose if I have a Tomcat, I have an application, Tomcat is running on 8080. In that case, if I want to access Tomcat, can I use IP and the port on which the Tomcat is running? Yes. Similarly, SSH. SSH is also one service on which port it is running? Port 22. Now, if I want to SSH to that server, do I need some kind of a client software, SSH client software? SSH client software. So what are the client softwares you guys use so far if you want to SSH? From Windows machine, if you want to SSH, you have a MobileStorm, you have a Git Bash, you have Putty, Super Putty, all these are like a SSH clients. All these are like a SSH clients. Suppose if you want to access Tomcat, are you going to use some kind of a browser like a Mozilla, Firefox, or Chrome? So this SSH is also one service. If you want to SSH to this service, you need a client software like this, any client software. Suppose if it is a already I am using Linux machine, do I need any client software explicitly? Suppose I am using Linux machine or I am using Mac, do I need any specific client software? Not required. Inbuilt terminal is there. I hope your question is answered. I think someone was asking how many ways we can connect or how many types we have to connect. Connect in the sense to which service you want to connect. SSH is also one service. If you want to connect to SSH service, you will use these client softwares. If I want to talk to the database, my application can use IP address of that server and port of that database. So my application can talk to the database. If I want to access Tomcat, I can use the IP address of that server and on which port the Tomcat is running, then I can access. But in the security group, do I need to open the firewall for these ports if I want to access these services? Yes. Hope everyone clear. Very, very important, guys. I'm trying to explain from very basics to advanced level also, but make sure you are attending and make sure you are practicing and you are doing the assignments. Okay. I'll continue tomorrow. Thank you. Tomorrow also we have a class. Saturdays, no holidays going forward. Here and there, 1 or 2 Saturdays holidays, but not all the Saturdays are holidays here onwards. Okay, guys. Thank you. I'll continue tomorrow with storage.